Folks today complain about being left waiting at restaurants or stood up for coffee dates. But let me tell you about real abandonment, the kind that happened when a man's word in a letter was supposed to be sacred as scripture. Back when promises meant something, and handshakes sealed deals that lasted lifetimes. Picture this: a woman steps off that dusty train in Millerville, Texas. Summer of 1884, clutching a worn carpet bag and a faded photograph. She's traveled 800 miles based on nothing but correspondence and hope. But the man waiting takes one long look, shakes his head, and walks away without a blessed word. Martha Whitmore stands there on that splintered depot platform, sun beating down like the good Lord's own judgment. 3 hours she waits, watching townspeople whisper and point. Her blue calico dress, the finest one she owns, clings to her back with perspiration. The brass corners of her carpet bag grow hot enough to brand, but she doesn't let go. That's when Elias Carter rides into town for supplies and witnesses something that stops him cold. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Elias Carter's wagon wheels grind a steady rhythm against the rutted dirt road. Martha sits beside him, spine straight, despite the jolting. The brass buckles on her carpet bag catch the late afternoon sun, throwing tiny spots of light across her lap. "My wife passed 3 years back," he says, eyes fixed on his horse's twitching ears. "Riding accident." Martha's hands tighten on the bag's worn leather handles. The smell of dust and horse sweat fills her nostrils. "I'm mighty sorry for your loss. Got a daughter, Emma. She's 9 now." His voice drops to barely above the wagon's creaking. Hasn't spoken a blessed word since it happened. The words settle between them like prairie dust. Martha watches a red-tailed hawk circle overhead, waiting for some small creature to make its final mistake. The ranch appears around a bend-weathered barn, modest house with a wide porch, chickens scratching lazy circles in the dirt. Everything looks solid but weary, like a man who's forgotten how to rest proper. Elias pulls the wagon to a stop beside a hitching post. "Emma, come say howdy." A single brown eye appears at the edge of the barn door. Just one eye, watching. Martha doesn't wave or smile the way most ladies would. She knows about being watched, being measured and found wanting. The eye vanishes. "She'll come around," Elias says, but his voice carries no conviction. Inside the house tells its story in layers of neglect. Cobwebs stretch across corners like old widow's lace. The kitchen holds good bones, a fine cast-iron cookstove, shelves lined with dusty mason jars, a wooden table scarred from years of family suppers. Martha runs her finger along the stove's surface. Clean underneath the dust, well-maintained. This here's a right proper stove. Mary loved to cook. Elias fills the doorway, hat in his hands. Haven't fired it much since. Martha opens the warming oven, peers inside. Spotless. She tests the flue damper smooth as silk. Everything works. Everything waits. A floorboard groans behind them. Emma stands at the kitchen threshold, thumb pressed to her lips, brown hair hanging in tangles around her face. She wears a faded cotton dress, sleeves ending inches above her thin wrists. Martha meets the child's stare without flinching, 9 years old, and already carrying the weight of sorrow in those dark eyes. "Reckon I could fix supper," Martha says to Elias, but her gaze stays on Emma. "If you've got cornmeal and such." Emma's thumb slides away from her mouth. Her lips part slightly, as if testing the weight of words. But the only sound that emerges is a sharp intake of breath. Something's moving in the shadows behind the child. A gray barn cat slinks past Emma's ankles, yellow eyes gleaming in the kitchen shadows. The child doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge the animal brushing against her legs. She watches Martha with the stillness of someone who's learned that sudden movements bring trouble. Martha finds cornmeal in a tin canister, the metal cool beneath her fingertips. Molasses thick as honey sits in a crockery jug, undisturbed by months of neglect. Bacon ends hang from pantry hooks, salt-crusted and ready. Her fingers trace familiar shapes, wooden spoons worn smooth by countless hands. A cast-iron skillet, seasoned black with use. Emma hovers at the doorway, one bare foot balanced atop the other, arms wrapped tight around her thin chest. Every few heartbeats she shifts her weight, floorboards announcing her presence with soft groans. Martha measures cornmeal into a wooden bowl. The dry grains whisper against each other like secrets. She adds a pinch of salt, works the mixture with her fingertips until the texture feels right. Not too fine, not too coarse. The way her mama taught her, back when mamas mattered and kitchens held families together. "You can come closer if you've a mind to," Martha says without looking up. Emma's foot slides forward an inch, then stops. Bacon grease pops and hisses in the hot skillet. Martha stirs the cornmeal batter, wooden spoon, scraping rhythms against the bowl's worn sides. Steam rises from the bacon, carrying the smell of home through the dusty kitchen salt and smoke, and the promise of plenty. Emma takes another step, then another. Martha pours batter into the skillet. The cornbread sputters and sets, edges browning quick in the bacon fat. She tests the center with a broom straw, comes out clean and golden. "There now." Martha turns the round onto a plate. "Still warms the finest way." Emma's dark eyes fix on the cornbread. Her thumb creeps toward her mouth, then drops back to her side. The back door swings open. Elias fills the frame, hat in hand, work shirt dark with honest sweat. He stops short when kitchen smells hit him full force. His nostrils flare once, like a horse catching scent of green pasture. "Been a mighty long while since this place smelled like proper supper," he says. Martha sets 3 tin plates on the scarred table. Metal rings against wood with homely music. "Emma, would you fetch the molasses jar?" The child moves without hesitation, small hands careful around the heavy crockery. She places it beside the cornbread, then looks at Martha with something close to surprise flickering in her eyes. "Much obliged." Martha cuts the cornbread into wedges, steam escaping from the golden crumb. "Elias, if you'd offer thanks." They bow their heads. Elias clears his throat, voice rough with disuse. "Lord, we thank you for this food, and for," his words catch like burrs, "for bringing Martha to us this day. Amen." "Amen," Martha whispers. Emma's lips move silently. Martha serves bacon and cornbread, drizzles molasses over each piece. Emma takes her first bite, chews slow and thoughtful. Her eyes widen. She reaches for another piece before finishing the first. "Easy now," Martha says. "Come, plenty for all." But Emma doesn't slow. She eats like someone who's forgotten what food tastes like when it's made with caring hands. Molasses drips down her chin. She wipes it with her sleeve, never breaking rhythm. Elias watches his daughter eat. Something moves across his weathered face, recognition, maybe, or the first stirring of hope. She hasn't taken to food like this since... He stops himself. "Since her mama passed." Martha finishes gently. He nods. Silence settles over them, broken only by the soft scrape of tin forks against plates. The coal oil lamp flickers, casting dancing shadows on whitewashed walls. Outside, crickets begin their evening song. Inside, for the first time in 3 long years, the house sounds like home. Emma finishes her second piece of cornbread and looks up at Martha. Her mouth opens slightly, forming the shape of words that won't come. Martha leans forward, waiting. But Emma's face suddenly drains white as fresh milk. She stares past Martha toward the kitchen window, her small body rigid with terror. A shadow passes across the glass, too large to be the barn cat. And it's moving toward the front door. Elias rises from his chair, boots scraping against pine planks. Just old Pete Hawkins making his evening rounds. Checks on folks most nights since his Martha passed. He moves to the window, peers through dust-streaked glass. "Evening, Pete," a gravelly voice calls back from the porch shadows. "Saw your lamp burning bright as Christmas. Figured you had company." Emma's shoulders drop like cut marionette strings. Her breathing slows to normal rhythm. She glances at Martha, then quickly looks away, color returning to her pale cheeks. Martha clears plates without comment. Tin clinks against a tin as she stacks them beside the wash basin. Water from the hand pump runs cold over her knuckles, washing away bacon grease and cornbread crumbs. The simple task steadies her hands. "Much obliged for supper," Elias says when Pete's footsteps fade into night sounds. "Haven't had cornbread that fine since Mary made it." Mary. The wife's name hangs in the kitchen air like coal smoke from the lamp. "I'll take the barn tonight," Martha says, drying her hands on a flour sack towel. "Don't want tongues wagging in town. Got a spare room upstairs. Was Mary's sewing room. Clean bed. Good window for catching the breeze. Martha nods. Emma watches this exchange with dark eyes, thumb creeping toward her mouth again like iron to a magnet. Emma, Elias says, show Martha upstairs. The child moves like water around furniture, feet silent on wooden steps. Martha follows, carpetbag in hand. The stairs creak under her weight, old house speaking its age in groans and sighs. The sewing room holds ghosts of domestic life. A quilting frame stands in one corner, half-finished wedding ring pattern stretched across it in blues and yellows. The needle still hangs from red thread, waiting for hands that will never return. A rocking chair faces the window, cushion shaped by years of evening needlework. Emma points to the narrow bed, then backs toward the doorway like smoke retreating from wind. Thank you kindly, Martha says. The child hesitates. Her mouth opens slightly, testing the weight of unspoken words, but she turns and disappears down the hall, bare feet whispering against floorboards. Martha sits on the bed's edge. The mattress gives under her weight, corn husks rustling inside the ticking like autumn leaves. Through the window, stars pierce Texas darkness with silver light. No city glow here to dim heaven's fire. She unpacks her meager belongings, 2 dresses, one already worn and wanting wash, undergarments mended more times than pride would prefer, a small Bible, pages soft from handling. Her mama's recipe book written in fading brown ink on water-stained paper. Dawn arrives with roosters announcing the day. Martha wakes to gray light filtering through muslin curtains. Her bones ache from yesterday's train ride and the unfamiliar mattress. She dresses quietly, smooths her hair, and finds her way downstairs. The kitchen holds morning's chill. Martha builds up the cookstove fire, adding kindling piece by piece until flames catch and hold. The coffee pot goes on first strong coffee, black as sin, and twice as necessary for working folks. Bacon sizzles in the skillet. The smell draws Emma to the kitchen doorway like honey draws flies. She wears yesterday's faded dress, hair tangled around her shoulders in brown waves. Morning, Martha says without turning from the stove. You hungry? Emma pads closer on bare feet. She stops beside the table, watching Martha work. The woman moves with purpose, no wasted motion, no fussing. Eggs crack against the skillet's edge, yolks bright yellow in bacon grease. Martha slides eggs onto a plate, adds crisp bacon and day-old biscuits. She sets the plate before Emma, then pours coffee for herself in a chipped cup. Emma picks up her fork, cuts through egg yolk. Golden liquid spreads across the plate, mixing with bacon fat in small pools. She takes a bite, chews thoughtfully. Martha sips her coffee, watching the child eat over the cup's rim. Emma's movements are careful, deliberate. No grabbing or wolfing. Someone taught this girl proper table manners once upon a time. The back door opens. Elias enters, hat pushed back, shirt already damp with morning chores. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cool air. Martha fills a plate for him without asking, eggs over easy. Bacon crisp, biscuit split and buttered. Sets it beside coffee she's already poured. He sits across from Emma, nods his thanks. They eat in comfortable quiet. Outside, chickens cluck and scratch. A cow lows in the distance, wanting milking. Normal ranch sounds, normal morning rhythms that speak of life continuing despite sorrow. Emma finishes her eggs and looks at Martha. Really looks this time. Not the quick glances of yesterday. Her dark eyes hold questions she can't voice, needs she can't name. Want to help with something today? Martha asks. Emma's fork stills in her hand. Her lips part slightly, forming silent words. She nods once, quick and shy. Good, and I'm fixing to make bread. Could use someone to help with the kneading. Emma slides off her chair and moves closer to Martha, close enough that her thin shoulder brushes the woman's arm. She stands there waiting while Martha measures flour into the wooden bowl, small hands fidgeting with her dress hem. Martha adds warm water, salt, a pinch of sugar saved from better times. The mixture comes together under her hands, sticky at first, then smooth and willing. She turns it onto the floured board. Like this, Martha says, showing Emma the rhythm. Push with the heel of your palm. Fold, turn, push, fold, turn. Ancient movements, old as grain and older than memory. Emma copies the motion. Her small hands work beside Martha's larger ones, both sets of fingers learning the same patient dance. Flour dusts their sleeves, marks their forearms with white fingerprints. The dough springs back when Martha pokes it with one finger. Ready for rising now? Emma looks up at her with something that might become a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Then her face goes rigid as stone. She's staring past Martha toward the kitchen window, eyes wide with the same terror that gripped her last night. But this time there's no neighbor making rounds. This time, orange light flickers along the southern horizon, and the air carries the sharp smell of burning grass. Martha turns to follow Emma's stare. Orange light paints the southern ridge, but it's only sunrise, not fire. Just morning sun catching the hills like spilled honey. The child's thin shoulders shake beneath her cotton dress. "Just the sun coming up?" Martha says, voice steady as bedrock. "Nothing to fear in that." Emma's breathing comes quick and shallow. Her thumb finds her mouth, pressed tight against trembling lips. The flower handprints on her dress look like ghost touches in the early light. Martha kneels beside the child's chair, bringing their eyes level. "Emma, look at me now." The girl's dark eyes fix on Martha's face. Wide, frightened, but listening. That there's sunrise happens every blessed morning, same as yesterday, same as tomorrow will be. Martha's voice carries the rhythm of certainty. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Always has since the good Lord set it in motion. Emma's thumb slides away from her mouth. Her breathing slows to match Martha's calm cadence. "Want to help me shape these bread loaves?" A nod, small but definite. They work together, in morning quiet. Martha divides the risen dough, shows Emma how to shape it into rounds. The child's small hands copy each motion, learning through touch what words can't teach. Flour dusts the table between them like fresh snow. The back door swings open. Elias enters, coffee cup in his weathered hand. He stops short when he sees them working side by side, flour in their hair, sleeves rolled up, the kitchen alive, with purpose again. "Bread smells mighty fine," he says. "Won't be ready till noon," Martha replies, sliding loaves into the warming oven. "But there's biscuits from yesterday if you need something to tide you over." He pours fresh coffee, leans against the door frame. Steam rises from his cup, carrying the rich scent of chicory and ground beans. "Emma, you helping Martha proper?" Emma looks up from wiping flour off her small hands. Her mouth opens slightly, no sound emerging but her head bobs in what passes for yes. "That's my good girl?" The words seem to surprise him. When did he last call his daughter good? When did he last have cause to? Martha fills the wash basin with pump water, starts cleaning breakfast dishes. Emma stays close, drying each plate with careful attention. Her movements are deliberate, respectful of fragile things that break too easy. "Emma," Martha says, handing her the last tin cup, "did you ever help your mama with cooking?" The child's hand stills on the drying cloth. Her thumb creeps toward her mouth, stops halfway. She nods, slow and careful. "Reckon you remember some things she taught you?" Emma nods again. Her lips move silently, as if tasting words she can't speak aloud. "Maybe you can show me later. Every cook's got her own special ways." The morning passes in comfortable work. Martha sweeps the kitchen floor while Emma follows with a dust rag, wiping chair legs and table corners. They move around each other like partners in a familiar dance. No words needed for understanding. Outside, chickens cluck and scratch in the dirt yard. A cow lows in the far pasture, heavy with morning milk. Normal ranch sounds, peaceful and predictable, as sunrise. Emma stops at the kitchen window, watching something in the yard. A red hen pecks at seeds near the porch steps, feathers bright as autumn leaves in the growing light. Nothing unusual, but Emma watches with the intensity of someone who finds meaning in small things. Martha joins her in the window. "That's Henrietta. She's the queen of all the other chickens, bossy as a church deacon." Emma's mouth curves slightly, not quite a smile, but close enough to count. "Your papa tells me you favor animals." Emma nods. "Me too. Had me a cat once, back in Missouri. Gray tabby named Smoke. He'd sit on my lap while I did needlework, purring like a tiny engine." Emma looks up at Martha, questions flickering in her dark eyes. "Where is Smoke now? Why did you leave Missouri? How did you end up on that train platform, abandoned and alone with nothing but a carpetbag and wounded pride?" But she can't voice the questions, can only stand there, thumb pressed to her lips, waiting for answers to mysteries she can't name. Martha seems to understand anyway. Sometimes life carries us places we never planned to go. Sometimes that's the only way to find where we truly belong. They stand together at the window, watching Henrietta rule her feathered kingdom. The morning sun climbs higher, warming the glass under Martha's palm. Birds sing in the cottonwood trees, normal sounds of a world at peace. Emma moves closer. Her shoulder touches Martha's arm. Tentative contact. When Martha doesn't pull away, the child leans against her just slightly, testing trust like someone stepping onto thin ice. Martha's hand finds Emma's tangled hair, smooths the brown strands with gentle fingers. The child's breathing deepens, tension leaving her thin shoulders like water draining from a bucket. For just a moment, peace settles over the kitchen like dust motes dancing in sunbeams. Two women, one grown and one small, finding comfort in shared silence and simple touch. Then Emma goes rigid against Martha's side. Her breathing stops entirely. Henrietta lies motionless in the dirt, red feathers scattered around her still form like fallen leaves. Standing over the dead hen, tongue lolling pink and wet, is the largest, most wolf-like dog Martha has ever laid eyes on. And it's staring directly at them through the kitchen window. Martha's hand clamps over Emma's mouth before the child can make a sound. The animal in the yard lifts its massive head, yellow eyes scanning the window like it can smell fear through glass. Not quite wolf, not quite dog, something caught between wild and tame, with matted fur hanging in ropes and ribs showing through mangy coat. Emma's breath comes hot and quick against Martha's palm. The child's whole body trembles like a sapling in a windstorm. "Hush now," Martha whispers against Emma's ear. "Just a stray dog. Hungry. That's all it is." The beast sniffs at Henrietta's still form, then looks toward the house. Its ears prick forward, alert to the slightest movement behind the dusty glass. Martha keeps her hand steady over Emma's mouth, feeling the rapid flutter of the child's breathing against her fingers. Boot heels ring against porch boards. Elias appears around the corner, rifle cradled in his arms. The dog's head swivels toward him, muscles bunching under patchy fur. "Get on!" Elias shouts, not raising the rifle but letting the animal see death in his hands. "Get out of here, you mangy cur!" The beast backs away from the dead hen, eyes never leaving Elias. 3 steps back, then Chad. Finally it turns and lopes toward the ridge, disappearing into scrub brush like smoke. Martha removes her hand from Emma's mouth. The child sags against her, all strength gone from her thin legs like someone cut her puppet strings. "Just a stray," Martha says. "Probably hasn't had a proper meal in days." But Emma shakes her head violent-like. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish drowning in air. No words come, only tiny gasping sounds that tear at Martha's heart. Elias enters through the back door, rifle still in his weathered hands. "Dang mongrel. Been killing chickens all over the county?" He stops dead when he sees Emma's face. "What's got into her?" Emma points toward the window with a shaking finger. Her other hand presses against her throat, as if words are lodged there like fish bones, fighting to get out. "She saw the dog," Martha explains. "So it's gone now, ain't it?" Emma shakes her head harder. She grabs Martha's arm, fingernails digging through cotton sleeves deep enough to leave marks. Her mouth moves soundlessly, forming shapes Martha can't make sense of. "Emma, honey, what is it?" The child's eyes fill with water. Tears spill over, tracking down her cheeks in silver lines. She opens her mouth wide, straining with effort that turns her face red. A thin sound emerges, barely audible above the kitchen's silence. "Mama!" Martha's breath catches in her throat. "What about Mama?" Emma points toward the window again, then toward the ridge where the dog vanished. Her voice cracks like dry kindling. "Mama?" Understanding hits Martha like a bucket of cold well water. "Your mama was riding when the accident happened." Emma nods, tears falling faster now, dropping onto her faded dress like rain on dusty ground. "There was a dog. A wild dog that spooked her horse." Another nod. Emma's small face crumples like wet paper. The story pours out in broken whispers and pointing fingers. 3 years of buried truth finally breaking free. Mama riding to check the north pasture on that terrible morning. The dog running out of nowhere, snapping at the mare's legs with foam-flecked jaws. The horse rearing, wheeling, throwing her rider hard against rocky ground. Emma running to help, finding her mama still and broken, blood dark as molasses in her yellow hair. Sweet, merciful Lord. Martha pulls Emma against her chest, feeling the small body shake with 3 years of buried grief. Oh, precious child. Emma's sobs come without sound, just the desperate gasping of someone who's forgotten how to cry proper. Her small fists clench in Martha's dress, holding on like she might drown without something solid to anchor to. Elias sets the rifle aside with hands that shake slightly. His face looks carved from stone, all sharp angles and hard lines. She never told me. Never said what she saw that day. Course she didn't, Martha says, still holding Emma tight. How could she? She was only 6 years old, watching her mama die. I should have known. Should have figured it out somehow. You were grieving too. Can't see past your own pain sometimes. Emma's sobs slow to hiccups. She stays pressed against Martha's chest, small arms wrapped around the woman's waist like she's afraid Martha might disappear if she lets go. Better now? Martha asks gently. Emma nods against her dress, leaving damp spots on the blue calico. Want to sit down? I'll fix us some coffee. But Emma doesn't release her grip. She clings to Martha like someone drowning clings to driftwood, afraid of sinking if she lets go even for a moment. Martha looks at Elias over the child's tangled head. His jaw works like he's chewing something bitter. 3 years of not understanding, of thinking his daughter was simply stubborn or touched in the head. 3 years of living with a child who couldn't tell him about the nightmare playing over and over in her mind every time she saw a dog, or heard horses running, or watched shadows move across windows. We should have talked about it, he says finally, voice rough as sandpaper. About Mary, about what happened. Instead, He stops, runs a hand through graying hair. I just wanted to forget. Forgetting doesn't heal wounds, Martha says. Just lets them fester like untended cuts. Emma pulls back far enough to look up at Martha's face. Her eyes are red-rimmed, but clearer than they've been since Martha arrived 2 days ago. She opens her mouth, tests her voice like someone learning to use a new tool. The word comes out rough and broken. Emma swallows hard. Tries again. She's not coming back. Is she? Mama's not ever coming back? Martha's throat tightens, like someone's pulling a rope around it. No, honey, she's not. Emma nods like she expected this answer but needed to hear it spoken aloud anyway. She wipes her nose on her sleeve, leaving a wet streak across the faded cotton. But that doesn't mean she's forgotten, Martha continues. Love doesn't die just because the person does. Your mama's love is still here, in this house, in the way your papa takes care of you, in all the sweet memories you carry. Emma considers this with the seriousness of someone much older. Her thumb creeps toward her mouth, then stops. Will you? Her voice cracks again like a boy's changing. Will you stay, even when I get scared? I'm not going anywhere, Martha promises. But even as she speaks the words, thunder rolls across the valley from the south like God's own bowling ball. The kitchen window rattles in its frame, and somewhere in the distance, lightning splits the sky in jagged pieces. The storm that's been building all morning is finally here. And with it comes a sound that makes Emma's face go white as fresh milk horses running hard across rocky ground, their hoofbeats echoing like rifle shots in the approaching darkness. The hoofbeats grow louder, pounding like hammers against anvil. Emma's fingernails dig crescents into Martha's arms. Through the kitchen window, riders appear through gray morning light, 3 men on lathered horses, their faces grim as undertakers. Elias moves to the door, hand resting on the rifle's worn stock. That's Tom Bradley and his boys. The lead rider pulls up hard in the yard, his horse snorting foam and pawing dirt. Tom Bradley's hat sits crooked on his graying head. Sweat stains dark as sin under his arms despite the cool morning air. Elias, he shouts, voice cracking with exhaustion. You seen the smoke? Martha looks past the riders toward the southern ridge. What she took for storm clouds now shows orange edges, rolling thick and black across the sky like the devil's own breath. The wind carries a sharp smell, burning grass, charred wood. Something darker underneath that makes her stomach clench. Prairie fire, Tom continues, his horse dancing nervous circles. Started down by Miller's Creek yesterday evening. The wind's pushing it north fast as a locomotive. Already took the Henderson place clean to the ground. Emma makes a small sound, pressing her face against Martha's dress like she can hide from the words. How long we got? Elias asks. Tom points toward the smoke with a trembling finger. 6 hours. Maybe less if the wind picks up stronger. You need to get your stock moved and your family out. Right now? I ain't running from no fire. Don't be a blamed fool. Elias, this fire's bigger than anything we've seen in 20 years. It's eating everything in its path like a living thing. Martha feels Emma's grip tighten till her small fingers go white. The child's breathing comes quick and shallow again, panic building in her thin chest like steam in a kettle. We'll stay and fight, Elias says, jaw set stubborn as granite. This here's our home. Tom shakes his head like he's dealing with a simpleton. Your funeral, then. But get that woman and child out at least. Send them to town with us. Martha steps forward, Emma still clinging to her waist. I'm much obliged for the offer, but I'm staying too. All 3 riders stare at her like she's sprouted horns. Tom's mouth works like he's chewing tobacco, though his cheeks are clean-shaven and empty. Ma'am, with all due respect, you don't understand what you're facing here. Fire moves faster than a horse can run when the wind's up proper, and that wind's rising. As if summoned by his words, a gust rattles the kitchen window hard enough to shake dust from the frame. The smell of smoke grows stronger, making Martha's eyes water and her throat burn. I understand just fine, Martha says, voice steady as church bells. But this is where I belong now. Tom spits brown juice in the dirt. On your own heads be it then. We warned you fair. He wheels his horse around, leather creaking. Come on, boys. Let's get to the Simmons place. See if they got more sense than these folks. The riders disappear in a cloud of dust and desperation, leaving silence behind except for the wind and the distant rumble that might not be thunder at all. Emma looks up at Martha, her dark eyes wide with questions she can't voice. Why are we staying? Why aren't we running? Like everyone else with half a brain, Martha kneels beside the child, takes her small hands in her own work-roughened ones. Emma, honey, I need you to be very brave today. Can you do that for me? A nod, barely visible. Good girl. Now we've got considerable work to do. The hours that follow blur together in desperate preparation. Martha organizes their defense like a general planning for battle. Wet sheets stripped from the wash line, buckets filled from the well until her arms ache, precious family photographs wrapped in oilcloth and buried deep in the root cellar. Emma follows Martha's every step, small hands helping where they can. The child doesn't speak, but she doesn't need to. Her dark eyes hold understanding beyond her 9 years. They're not just fighting for house and barn. They're fighting for the only home she's ever known, the place where her mama's memory lives in every floorboard and window pane. Elias works outside, creating fire breaks with the plow, moving horses and cattle to the far pasture. His shirt hangs black with sweat, muscles straining as he drags water buckets from well to barn, soaking the wooden walls till they drip like morning dew. By afternoon, the smoke rises above the southern ridge like a giant's shadow. Orange light flickers at its base, not sunset, but something hungrier, more terrible. The wind carries ash now, gray flakes settling on Martha's hair and shoulders like dirty snow from hell's own winter. Emma stands at the kitchen window, watching the approaching destruction. Her thumb presses against her lips, but she doesn't suck it, just holds it there, a small anchor in the growing chaos around them. Scared? Martha asks, joining her at the window. Emma nods without shame. Me too. But being scared doesn't mean we give up and run. Sometimes it means we fight harder than we ever thought we could. The child looks up at her with trust that makes Martha's chest tight. Will the fire? Her voice breaks like dry kindling. She swallows, tries again. Will it take everything like it took the Hendersons? Martha feels something cold settle in her stomach. Not just fear of the fire, but fear of failing this child who's already lost so much. What if Tom Bradley was right? What if staying to fight is just foolish pride dressed up as courage? What if she's about to get them all killed for nothing more than stubborn vanity? But looking down at Emma's trusting face, Martha knows there's no choice now. Running would save their lives. Maybe. But it would kill something else. The fragile sense of belonging they've built over these precious few days. The feeling that this place, these people, might actually be worth dying for. We're not going to let it take everything, Chartin, Martha says, her voice carrying conviction she doesn't fully feel. We're going to save what matters most. Emma nods solemn as a deacon taking communion, like she's receiving a sacred oath. Outside, Elias shouts from the barn, "Martha, come quick!" They run to the yard, Emma's bare feet slapping against packed dirt. Elias stands beside the water trough, pointing toward the ridge with a hand that shakes like palsy. The fire has crested the hill. It moves like a living thing with malevolent purpose, consuming grass and scrub brush, sending sparks into the darkening sky like the devil's own fireworks. The roar is audible now, not thunder, but the sound of destruction given voice, hungry and relentless. How long? Martha asks, though she already knows the answer will be worse than she hopes. Elias squints at the advancing flames, sweat beading on his forehead. 2 hours, maybe less if the wind keeps up. Emma grabs Martha's hand, her small fingers ice cold despite the heat building in the air. Are we going to die? The question hangs between them like smoke, honest and terrible. Martha opens her mouth to give some comforting lie, some adult reassurance that everything will be fine as summer rain. But before she can speak, a new sound cuts through the fire's roar, not the crack of burning wood or the hiss of superheated air, but something else entirely that makes the blood freeze in Martha's veins. The sound of horses screaming in mortal terror. And it's coming from the direction of the far pasture, where Elias moved their livestock to keep them safe from the approaching flames. Elias runs toward the screaming horses, boots pounding hard-packed earth. Martha grabs Emma's hand, pulling the child toward the house. "Root cellar, now!" Emma plants her feet like a mule, refusing to budge. "The horses, your papa will get them." Martha's fingers dig into Emma's thin wrist. "We need to get you safe first." The child breaks free, sprinting after her father on bare feet. Martha curses under her breath and follows, her skirts tangling around her legs like grabbing hands. The far pasture tells its story in smoke and flame, a grass fire, separate from the main blaze, races toward the livestock pen like a living snake. The horses mill in panicked circles, trapped between fence rails and approaching death. Their screams pierce the air like broken glass, raw and desperate. Elias reaches the gate first. His hands fumble with the wire latch, precious seconds ticking away while flames creep closer. 20 feet, 15. The horses smell their own death coming on the wind. Emma slips past Martha, small body darting between fence rails like water through a sieve. She moves without hesitation, walking straight toward the terrified animals with steady steps. "Emma, no." Martha lunges forward, but the child is already inside the pasture, already beyond reach. The horses see Emma and quiet slightly. Not calm, but listening. She raises her small hands, palms out, the way someone approaches a spooked dog. Her voice carries over the fire's roar, thin but steady as a church bell. "Easy now. Easy, girls." The bay mare, the same one that threw Emma's mother 3 years ago, steps toward the child, nostrils flaring wide, ears pinned back flat, but she steps closer anyway. Emma reaches up, touches the mare's sweat-slicked neck. "I remember you, Buttercup. You remember me." Martha's breath stops in her throat. The child is speaking, full sentences, clear and strong, talking to the horse that killed her mother like they're old friends meeting at market. Elias gets the gate open, hinges screaming protest. "Emma, get behind me!" But Emma stays beside the mare, her small hands steady on the animal's trembling neck. "She's not bad, Papa. She was just scared. Like me." The fire line hits the fence posts, with a sound like the world cracking open. Wood explodes into sparks and flame. Heat hits Martha's face like an open furnace door, making her eyes water and her skin contract like leather left in sun. Emma leads the mare toward the gate, moving slow and deliberate. The other horses follow, trusting the child more than their own wild instincts. One by one they file through the opening, heading for safer ground near the house. The last horse clears the gate just as fire consumes the far fence line. Elias slams the gate shut, though there's nothing left to contain. The pasture is already burning, grass disappearing in sheets of orange light that hurt to look at direct. They run toward the house, horses galloping ahead of them like the devil's own cavalry. Emma's hand finds Martha's, her small fingers no longer cold but burning hot with something that might be excitement. "I talked to them," she pants, words coming between gasps for air. "I talked and they listened to me." "Yes, you surely did." Martha's throat aches from smoke and something deeper pride. Maybe. Or recognition of courage she didn't know existed in such a small package. The main fire crests the ridge like a breaking wave made of destruction. It moves faster than Martha imagined possible, consuming everything in its path with hungry roars. The air fills with ash and burning debris, turning day into something from Revelation. Elias reaches the yard first, sweat streaming down his face. "Barn's next, we need to get the animals to the north field." Martha looks toward the barn, where the horses have taken shelter. Beyond it, she sees the chicken coop with its remaining hens, the milk cow standing confused in her pen, the pig rooting in mud that will soon be baked to brick. "No time," she says, voice hoarse from smoke. "Fire's moving too fast for that." Emma tugs on her dress with urgent fingers. "The root cellar. We can put them in the root cellar." Martha stares at the child like she's spoken in tongues. "That's—" She stops, mind racing faster than the approaching flames. The root cellar is built into the hillside behind the house. Walls of stone and earth, heavy wooden door that won't burn, and it's big enough for small animals if they crowd them tight. "Brilliant, Sharnum," Martha breathes. "Emma, you're absolutely brilliant." They work like people possessed by righteous purpose. Elias herds the chickens while Martha carries them, one by one, to the cellar, their wings beating against her arms. Emma coaxes the pig with handfuls of corn, leading it down stone steps like she's done this 100 times before. The milk cow follows the pig, trusting the child's calm voice over her own bovine terror. The horses won't fit, but they're fast enough to outrun flames if worst comes to worst. Elias turns them loose in the north field, where grass grows green and water runs clear. By the time they seal the animals in the root cellar, the fire reaches the southern fence line. The roar drowns out everything else, a freight train made of flame and fury, consuming the world 1 acre at a time. Martha soaks sheets in the horse trough, hands them to Emma and Elias with water dripping from her elbows. "Cover yourselves, stay low as you can. And whatever happens, don't run. Fire moves faster than people do." Emma wraps the wet sheet around her thin shoulders like a baptismal robe. Her dark eyes shine with something beyond fear, wild joy. Maybe. Or the discovery that she's braver than she ever knew. The fire hits the barn first. Old wood explodes like kindling soaked in coal oil, sending sparks in all directions like the 4th of July gone mad. One lands on Martha's wet sheet, hissing and steaming. Another catches the corner of the house roof. Elias scrambles up the ladder, bucket in hand, but flames spread faster than he can douse them. Within minutes, half the roof burns bright as a beacon, casting hellish light across the yard. Emma stands in the chaos, watching their home disappear in smoke and flame. Her mouth moves silently, and Martha realizes she's praying not desperate bargaining, but steady words of someone who's found faith in the middle of disaster. The fire passes like a fever breaking. One moment the world burns with apocalyptic fury. The next it's simply gone, transformed into a landscape of ash and glowing coals. The barn stands as blackened skeleton bones. The house remains but barely. Its roof open to gray sky. They've saved the structure. They've saved the animals. They've saved each other. But as Martha looks around at the devastation stretching in all directions, she realizes they've lost something that might kill them, just as dead as the fire would have. The well pump handle moves freely in her hand, but produces nothing. Not a drop. The fire has sucked every bit of moisture from the ground for miles around. And without water, they won't last 3 days in this wasteland of ash and death. Emma drops to her knees beside the well, dirt grinding into her bare skin. Her small hands work the pump handle, muscles straining against stubborn metal. The mechanism groans and squeaks, but produces nothing, not even the wet sucking sound of a struggling water table. "Pump ain't broken," Elias says, examining the mechanism with practiced hands. "Well's just dry as old bones. Fire drew up all the groundwater for miles around." Martha runs her tongue across cracked lips. The air tastes of ash and charred wood, coating her throat with every breath like eating dirt. Around them, the landscape stretches black and lifeless, a moonscape where nothing grows, nothing moves, nothing lives. Emma sits back on her heels, looking up at the adults, with dirt streaking her pale cheeks. What do we do now? Before either can answer, A sound drifts across the wasteland. Not wind, which barely stirs the ash, but something else. Rhythmic, familiar as heartbeat, hoofbeats. Martha shields her eyes against pale morning sun. A single rider approaches from the north, picking his way careful through the burned-over ground. As he draws closer, she recognizes Tom Bradley's weathered face beneath his soot-stained hat. "Came back to check on you folks," Tom calls, pulling his horse to a stop beside their ruined gateposts. "Figured I'd be digging graves." "We're alive," Elias says, simple as stating the weather. Tom's eyes take in the skeletal barn, the damaged house, the three ash-covered figures standing in what used to be their yard. "Barely. Looks like, well, dry." Martha nods. "Thought it might be fire sucked every drop of water out of the ground between here and Miller's Creek." Tom reaches for his saddlebags, pulls out a canvas-wrapped bundle. "Brought you some supplies. Water, mostly chass, and jerky. Won't last long, but it'll get you to town proper." Emma stands, brushing ash from her knees with careful hands. "We're not going to town." Tom blinks at her, clearly surprised to hear the child speak clear words. "Little miss, you can't stay here. Nothing left but dust and dead ground." "There's still the root cellar," Emma says, voice steady as bedrock. "And the house bones are good. We can rebuild." Martha feels something shift in her chest, not hope exactly up, but its stubborn cousin. Determination. Emma is right. The foundations remain solid as the day they were laid. The stone walls of the root cellar haven't cracked. Even the well, though dry now, will fill again when rains return and the water table recovers. "Child's got more sense than the both of you put together," Tom continues, shaking his head. "This land won't grow nothing for years to come. You'll starve before winter sets in proper." Emma walks to where the kitchen garden used to flourish. Now it's nothing but ash and the twisted remains of fence posts like broken teeth. She kneels, digging her small fingers into gray dirt. When she pulls her hand back, something green clings to her palm. A tiny shoot, barely visible against her ash-stained skin, but unmistakably, impossibly alive. "Look here," she whispers. Martha and Elias kneel beside her in the dirt. There, in the space between Emma's fingers, a seedling pushes up through ash and death. Bean plant, maybe, or squash. Something with enough stored strength to pierce the darkness above and reach for light. "Well, I'll be hornswoggled," Tom says from his saddle. "Ground ain't as dead as it looks." Emma digs carefully around the seedling, making a small depression to shelter it from wind. Mama always said fire makes the soil rich, burns away the old, makes room for new things to grow strong. Martha's throat tightens like someone's pulling rope around it. When did Mary Carter say that during one of those kitchen conversations between mother and daughter, back when this house was full of women's voices and the promise of endless tomorrows? Your mama was right as rain. Martha says, fire destroys, but it also cleanses, makes everything possible again. Elias stands slow, brushing ash from his knees with deliberate care. He looks at his damaged house, his ruined barn, his blackened fields. Then he looks at his daughter, kneeling in dirt and whispering encouragement to a plant too small to see without squinting. "We'll rebuild," he says, quiet but firm. "All of it. House, barn, fences, make it better than before." Tom shakes his head but reaches for his saddlebags again. "Your funeral, I reckon, but if you're staying, you'll need these." He tosses down packets wrapped in brown paper. "Seeds, turnips, beans, winter squash, fast-growing varieties. Plant them now. You might have food before first frost." Martha catches the packets, feeling their weight in her palm. Such small things to carry such large hopes. "There's something else," Tom says, his voice suddenly formal as Sunday service. "Circuit preachers coming through next week, making rounds to marry folks, baptize babies, say words over the dead. You folks interested in any of that?" Martha looks at Elias. He's watching Emma tend her tiny seedling with the focused attention of someone memorizing something precious and fleeting. "Yes," Martha says without consulting him further. "We're interested." Elias glances up, meeting her eyes direct. Something passes between them, understanding, maybe, or recognition of what they've built together in these few short days. Not love exactly, not yet, but the foundation love might grow from, given time and proper tending. Yes, he echoes. We surely are. Tom tips his hat. I'll send word when he's coming then. And I'll check on you folks in a few weeks. Make sure you haven't starved or gone crazy from the isolation. He rides away, leaving them alone in their kingdom of ash and possibility. Emma looks up from her seedling, dirt under her fingernails and hope in her dark eyes. We should plant the rest today. Before the soil cools too much, Martha opens the first seed packet with careful fingers. Beans spill into her palm hard, dry, seemingly lifeless. But she knows better now. Life hides in the strangest places, waiting for the right moment to emerge from darkness. They work together as the sun climbs higher. 3 pairs of hands planting hope in ground that looks like the end of the world but feels like the beginning of something new entirely. Emma names each planted row, talking to the seeds the way she talked to the frightened horses. Grow strong, she whispers to the beans. Grow tall and green and proud. Martha presses turnip seeds into ash-dark soil, feeling grit work under her fingernails. This is honest work, the kind that builds calluses and character in equal measure. When the last seed finds its place in earth, they stand together in their ruined garden, looking at neat rows that mark their commitment to staying, to rebuilding, to believing that dead ground can bloom again. Emma slips her hand into Martha's. Her voice, when she speaks, carries quiet confidence of someone who's learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to plant seeds anyway. Will you teach me to cook like Mama did, all her recipes? Martha squeezes the small hand in hers. Every blessed one I can remember, and we'll make new ones too. Above them, clouds gather for the first time in weeks. Rain clouds, heavy with promise, and the smell of distant water. The first drops fall just as they reach shelter of the damaged house fat. Cold drops that hiss against still warm ash and smell like the future itself. You know, friend, I've been thinking about what makes a house a home. It's not the walls or the roof or even the family pictures on the mantle. It's something deeper, the willingness to stay when staying is hard, to plant seeds in burned ground, to believe that broken things can heal if you tend them with enough patience. Martha found her worth not in someone else's acceptance, but in her own capacity to nurture what others had given up for dead. Emma discovered that her voice had been there all along, waiting for someone who would listen without demanding she speak. And Elias learned that moving forward doesn't dishonor the past, it fulfills it. Sometimes we think love is about grand gestures and passionate declarations, but real love lives in smaller moments, teaching a child to knead bread, standing together against the storm, choosing to rebuild rather than run away. It's the daily decision to tend someone else's heart with the same care you'd give your own garden, consistently, patiently, believing in growth you can't yet see. In the end, that's what saves us all, not being rescued by someone else, but discovering we have what it takes to rescue each other. Disclaimer: this is a work of fiction inspired by traditional Western storytelling, created solely for entertainment purposes. This story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. But all characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental.